The week my daughter was born, I was still technically a soldier. Not in the poetic sense. In the literal report to formation 0500, boots on the ground sense. My unit had a drill weekend scheduled for the second week of November, and I went because that is what I had signed a contract to do. My daughter was 11 days old. I had arranged everything. I had arranged it in writing. When I came home on Sunday evening, the crib was gone. Not moved. Not disassembled and stored. Gone. My mother-in-law had dragged it to the curb on Saturday morning, the day after I left, and the city had taken it with the regular trash pickup. The mattress. The mobile with the little wooden elephants I had ordered 3 months before she was born. All of it. I know the exact timestamp on the city's collection record because I requested it. I know it the way I know every number that matters. That is my job. I am a JAG paralegal. I work with documents for a living. I know what can be filed and when and what it costs to ignore something that has been properly served. My name is Renata, and I am going to tell you what I did about it. Welcome to Family Revenge Stories New, the channel where quiet people keep the receipts and family learns that boundaries have a price. If stories about dignity, documents, and consequences are your kind of story, drop a comment and subscribe. We are just getting started. I have been a paralegal in the Judge Advocate General's Corps for 9 years. Before that, 2 years active duty, then reserve. What my job means practically is that I spend my professional life reading what people agreed to, measuring the distance between what they said and what they signed, and making sure the record reflects what actually happened. Not what someone remembers. What the paper says. My husband Marcus is a civil engineer. We met at a barbecue thrown by a mutual friend from my unit. He is the kind of man who takes his shoes off at your door without being asked, who replaces the roll of paper towels before it fully runs out, who keeps his word without announcement. We had been married 4 years when our daughter Sylvie was born. Marcus's family is the kind of family that runs on a particular economy. His mother, Geraldine, is the center of it. She has 4 adult children, and she manages them the way a certain kind of woman manages things, through provision. She buys the furniture. She pays deposits. She funds down payments with loans that are understood to be gifts until they are understood not to be. She gives so that she can have a say in what was given. I had watched this for 4 years with what I can only describe as professional recognition. I had seen this structure before in documents, in disputes. I knew its shape. What I had not fully accepted is that she had always intended to run it on me too. I was, in the family's accounting, the girl who joined the army instead of attending a proper university. The girl who worked with lawyers but was not one. The girl who kept a binder of household documents in the linen closet and who had, once at a family dinner, quietly corrected something Geraldine had said about a lease agreement in a way Geraldine had never forgotten. I had shown up. For 4 years I had shown up to every holiday, every birthday, every emergency. I had driven Marcus's youngest sister to a medical appointment when no one else could. I had helped his brother draft a letter to a landlord. I had done this because Marcus loved his family and I loved Marcus, and I had believed, in the way you believe things before you have evidence, that showing up counts for something. It counts. Just not always in the way you expect. Sylvie was born on a Wednesday. She was 7 pounds and 4 ounces, and she had Marcus's ears and my stubbornness and the particular look of someone who has already decided she is not interested in being patient. My drill weekend was the following weekend. 2 days. Mandatory. I had spoken to my commanding officer about it during my 3rd trimester, and we had discussed options, and in the end I was cleared to attend but given a modified duty assignment, mostly administrative. I would be gone approximately 36 hours. I had arranged childcare with Marcus's schedule. He had taken the 2 weeks off. I had written down feeding schedules and pediatrician numbers, and the particular brand of pacifier that Sylvie would accept. I had left a printed sheet on the kitchen counter. I do this professionally. I also do it personally. I document. Geraldine had offered to come and help. I want to be precise about this. She offered. Marcus thanked her and told her we would be in touch but that we had things managed. She called twice more before the weekend. Marcus answered both calls. He told her both times that we were fine. On the Friday evening before I left, she arrived at our house with a casserole. We let her in because she had driven 40 minutes and she was holding food and she was Marcus's mother. And those are the invisible tax brackets of family. You pay them without thinking. She held Sylvie. She looked around our apartment. I watched her eyes move across the nursery through the open door. The crib we had assembled ourselves from a Swedish flat-pack box on a Saturday afternoon. Marcus reading the instructions aloud in the accent he thought was funny. Sylvie's mobile. The small bookshelf I had painted white. She said, "The crib is positioned wrong. The airflow from the window will cause drafts." I said, "The window is sealed for winter." "But thank you." She looked at me for a moment with the particular expression of someone filing something away. I left the next morning at 0430. Marcus was asleep. Sylvie was in the bassinet in our room. I kissed them both and I drove to the armory. At 11:47 a.m. on Saturday, Marcus texted me. "Mom came by. She rearranged some things. Don't freak out." I stared at that text for a long time. I called him. He didn't answer. I texted back. "What does rearranged mean?" He replied 40 minutes later. "She moved the crib to the garage. Said it wasn't safe. We can talk when you get back." She did not move the crib to the garage. I learned that on Sunday evening when I came home and found our garage empty, and our neighbor Mrs. Okafor standing on her porch with an expression that told me she had watched something and felt bad about it. "She put it by the curb," Mrs. Okafor said. "Yesterday morning. I thought maybe you were donating it." The city's collection record, which I requested from Public Works the following Tuesday, confirmed pickup at 7:14 a.m. on Saturday. I went inside. Marcus was in the kitchen. He had already ordered a new crib from a box store, an expression on his face I had not seen before. Not guilt exactly. Something smaller. Something that looked like a man hoping the new crib would close the subject. I sat down at the kitchen table. Sylvie was asleep in her bassinet, which Geraldine had apparently approved. I opened my phone. I took a screenshot of Marcus's texts. I saved Mrs. Okafor's verbal account in my notes with the time and date. I pulled the city collection record and saved it. I photographed the empty space in the nursery. I did not do this because I knew what I was going to do with it. I did it because I am a paralegal and documentation is what my hands do when my mind is still catching up. Then I sat with the city collection record on my phone screen, 7:14 a.m., November 12th, and I let myself understand what had actually happened. A woman had waited for me to leave, then walked into my home and disposed of my daughter's furniture. Not rearranged. Discarded. She had calculated correctly that Marcus would manage me. She had given herself permission to make a decision in my house about my child's belongings during the 36 hours I was fulfilling a legal obligation to my country. She had looked at my uniform and decided that my absence was an opening. 2 months later, Marcus's father died. Gerald Sr. had been ill for 3 years. A long, quiet decline that the family had managed the way they managed most things, with Geraldine at the center and everyone else orbiting. He had been a gentle man. An engineer like his son. He had liked crossword puzzles and cardinal baseball, and the particular quiet of early mornings. He and I had gotten along in the way of two people who do not need to fill silence. I had visited him monthly during his illness. I had gone alone sometimes when Marcus was working. I had brought him the newspaper because he preferred ink to screens. He had once shown me a box in his study. He said, "Renata, if anything happens to me, the attorney is James Whitfield. He has everything. Tell Marcus." I had written James Whitfield's name in my phone's notes on November 22nd of 2 years ago. With the date, Gerald Sr. passed on a January Tuesday. 3 weeks after the funeral, Marcus and I received a call from James Whitfield's office asking us to come in for the reading. I want to tell you what it felt like to sit in James Whitfield's waiting room. The kind of carpeting that absorbs sound. Framed diplomas arranged in a grid. A receptionist who brought us water we didn't ask for. Geraldine was in the other chairs with Marcus's 2 brothers and his sister. She was wearing gray. She had the specific composure of someone who already knows the answer to the test. James Whitfield is a man of maybe 60, with wire glasses and the careful diction of someone who has delivered bad news and good news in equal measure and learned to pace himself regardless. He opened the document. Gerald Sr.'s estate was held in a revocable living trust. That is a structure designed to pass assets outside of probate, with instructions the grantor, Gerald Sr., wrote while competent and recorded formally. The trust distributed the house and its contents equally among the 4 children. Standard. The liquid assets, a brokerage account and a savings account, were distributed differently. 1/4 to each child, and 1/4 to a separate beneficiary. Me. Not Marcus. Me specifically by name with my social security number and a contingency clause that read, "This bequest is made in recognition of Renata's consistent presence, care, and integrity during the grantor's illness, and is intended to be hers alone, not commingled with marital assets as described in the accompanying letter." The accompanying letter was sealed. Whitfield slid it across the table to me. Geraldine's composure cracked in one place, one moment, like a hairline fracture in porcelain. I watched it happen. She looked at the letter in my hands and I saw her recalculating. I did not open the letter in that room. I put it in my bag. I can tell you the figure now. The quarter share came to $47,200. And the letter, I read it that night alone after Sylvie was asleep. It was 1 page, handwritten in Gerald Sr.'s narrow print. He wrote that he had watched me for 4 years. He wrote that he knew what showing up cost and he knew who paid it. He wrote one line I will not reproduce in full because it is mine, but it ended, "I know what kind of woman my son married. I hope he does too." I read it twice, then a third time. Then I folded it along its original creases and I put it in the linen closet binder, between the household insurance policy and the car registration. The call came from Geraldine on a Thursday evening. She wanted to meet. She used the word discuss. She said it was about Gerald's wishes and what he would have wanted. I said I was available Saturday afternoon. She arrived with Marcus's brother Dean. Dean is the family's interpreter. He translates Geraldine's positions into the language of reasonableness. He makes them sound like suggestions. He sat across from me in my living room with the specific energy of someone who had rehearsed. Geraldine said that she believed Gerald's intent had been to provide for the family unit, not to single out individuals. She said that in her experience, these kinds of designations were made without full understanding of the dynamics. She said the phrase family money twice. Dean said that they had spoken to their own attorney. He said, and I wrote this down immediately after they left, his exact words, "Dad would have wanted this handled quietly within the family. It would be a shame to make things adversarial." I looked at Dean for a moment. I said, "What was the date of the city's trash collection on Sylvie's crib?" He blinked. "Because I have it," I said. "If that's the kind of thing we're keeping track of." There was a silence that lasted approximately 4 seconds. "That was a misunderstanding," Geraldine said. "I was trying to help." I nodded. I did not agree or disagree. I said I appreciated them coming, and that I would think carefully about everything, and that they should expect to hear from my attorney. After they left, I called Whitfield and asked him to send the formal documentation confirming the trust's terms, the beneficiary designation, and the explicit instruction that the bequest was mine alone and not subject to marital commingling. He sent it by Monday. Then I called Marcus. We had a long conversation. It was not the first long conversation we had had about his mother. It was different from the others because I did not ask him to choose. I told him what I was going to do and I asked if he had questions. He had one. He asked if I was angry. I thought about it honestly. I said, "I counted what I spent. I'm adjusting the balance." If you have ever watched someone calculate that your absence was worth more to them than your presence, that a soldier's drill weekend was an opportunity, that a grieving month was a negotiation opening, you already understand this story. Stick with me. We are in the part where the quiet people open their folders. The family gathering was called a remembrance dinner. 6 weeks after the reading. Geraldine's house. Everyone invited, including me. I understood what it was. I had seen similar structures in mediation documents. The gathering meant to create social pressure, to make the cost of resistance visible, to surround a person with the weight of family and ask them to sign something or surrender something in the room where it would be hardest to refuse. I accepted the invitation. I brought a folder. Manila letter size, the kind with the 2 interior pockets. I have used them for 9 years. They cost 49 cents. The dinner was set at a long table. Gerald Sr.'s photograph was framed at the head. His crossword puzzle book was displayed beside it. I do not know if that was deliberate or not. I chose to believe it was. Geraldine had made his favorite meal. Pot roast. Bread rolls. The kind of dinner that is also an argument. See how much I loved him, see how much I give. I ate. The rolls were good. After the meal, Geraldine stood. She spoke for 11 minutes. I know because I had my phone face down on the table and I clocked the start and end. She spoke about Gerald Sr.'s wishes, his character, his belief in family unity. She quoted him loosely, generously, in ways that served her argument. She used the word legacy 4 times. She looked at me twice. The second time she held my gaze for a beat longer. And I understood she was giving me the chance to speak, to offer something, to fold. I asked for the floor. Dean looked surprised. Marcus's sister Colette looked at the tablecloth. I said, I want to share a few things Gerald left behind. I think this is the right time. I opened the folder. The first document I placed on the table was the trust itself, the relevant pages, the beneficiary clause, the commingling prohibition. I read the key language aloud. Plain English. 1 sentence. Geraldine said, We know what the document says. I said, I know you do. I placed the second document beside it. The City of St. Louis Public Works Collection Record. Date, November 12th. Time, 7:14 a.m. Address, hours. Item collected. Furniture. I said, This is when the crib was picked up. Sylvie was 11 days old. I was at drill. The table was quiet. Dean said, Renata, that's not what this. I placed the third item on the table. It was not a document. It was a photograph printed 4x6 of the empty space in my daughter's nursery. The pale rectangle on the hardwood where the crib had stood. I had taken it the evening I came home. Geraldine said, I was trying to help. The window. The window was sealed for winter, I said. Same words, same tone, as the night she had come with the casserole. I watched her recognize them. Marcus's brother Paul, the youngest, the one I had driven to a specialist appointment 2 years before, put his fork down. I placed the fourth item on the table. Gerald Sr.'s letter. Not open, still folded. I placed it in the center of the table, where everyone could see his handwriting on the outside. His narrow print. I'm not going to read this to you, I said. It was written to me. But I want you to see that it exists, and that he wrote it himself and that he dated it. The date on the outside of the letter was October 3rd, 11 weeks before he died. 6 weeks after the crib. The room was quiet for a long time. Geraldine said, He wasn't well. He was lucid. Whitfield had confirmed this in writing. I had that document too, but I did not place it on the table. I did not need to. I said only, His attorney will confirm the date of execution if needed. Dean stood up. He used the word inappropriate. He used the word theatrical. He said I was making a grieving family moment into a legal proceeding. I waited until he sat down. I said, I showed up for 4 years. I drove Paul to Barnes Jewish on a Tuesday in February when everyone else was busy. I visited your father monthly when he was ill. I brought him the newspaper because he preferred it to screens. I paused. I documented that too. Paul said quietly, She did. Dean looked at his brother. Geraldine sat very still. I picked up the letter. I put it back in the folder. I said, I am not here to be adversarial. I'm here because Gerald wanted me to have something and I'm going to honor that. What I am no longer available for is the math that makes my contributions invisible, and my absence an opportunity. I picked up the folder. I said, The crib cost $340. The mobile was $47. I'm not asking for either of those things back. I looked at Geraldine. I'm asking you to not come into my home when I'm not there. That's the only thing I'm asking for tonight. I left before dessert. The trust distribution was finalized 8 weeks later. The $47,200 was transferred into an individual account in my name, per the commingling clause, documented and clean. Geraldine retained her quarter of the estate, as written. So did Dean and Marcus's sister Colette. Paul called me 2 weeks after the dinner. He didn't say much. He said he wanted to apologize for not saying something sooner, and that he was sorry about the crib. I thanked him. I didn't offer absolution. I didn't withhold it either. I just let it be what it was. Dean has not called. Geraldine sent a card at Christmas. It said, "Wishing your family well." I put it in the recycling. Marcus and I are still married. We had the long conversation and then several more, and then a shorter one that was more honest than all the others. He is a good man who grew up in a house where one woman held the ledger and everyone let her. He is learning what that cost. I think he will get there. Sylvie's new crib is the same model as the first one. Different color, she has grown opinions. The mobile above it has different elephants because I looked for the same ones and couldn't find them, and at some point I stopped looking. The folder is in the linen closet binder, between the insurance policy and the car registration where it has always lived. The letter is there too, folded on its original creases. I took $2,000 of the estate and I bought a rocking chair. Not for our apartment. For the family respite center 2 miles from the hospital where Gerald Sr. spent his last weeks. The place that provides furniture and equipment for families staying close to ill relatives. I had it delivered in December, with a small card that said it was given in Gerald Holloway Sr.'s name. He would have liked that. He liked early mornings and quiet and the particular dignity of things done without announcement. Here is what I know now that I did not fully know before. A boundary is not a wall. It is an accounting. It is the moment you take out the ledger you have been keeping in silence and you say out loud in plain language in front of whoever needs to hear it, "This is what it cost and this is what it was worth and I am no longer available to absorb the difference." Gerald Sr. knew what kind of woman his son had married. I know now too. If this story reminded you that quiet people keep the receipts, that your presence has value someone will try to price after you're gone, and that a 49-cent folder can be the most powerful thing in a room, take that with you. Update what needs updating. Tell someone who's been letting themselves be invisible. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.